Once upon a time, in a land called India, there were rules that helped people live together peacefully. These rules were called laws, and they were created by a special group of people who had the authority to make them. The power to make laws was divided between the central government and the state governments. The central government had the power to make laws for the whole country, while the state governments could make laws for their respective states. This division of power was written down in a special document called the Constitution. In the Constitution, there were 3 lists that determined which government could make laws on different subjects. When the central government wanted to make a new law, they had to go through a process. First, they had to recognize that there was a need for a new law. Then, a group of experts called a standing committee would come up with a plan or a draft of the new law. The draft would then be presented to the cabinet, which is a group of important government officials, for their approval. If the cabinet liked the draft, it would be taken to the parliament, which is a place where representatives from all over the country gather to discuss and make decisions. The draft would go through 2 houses in the parliament, the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, where the representatives would discuss it and vote on whether it should become a law. If at least half of the representatives in both houses agreed that the draft should become a law, it would be sent to the president for their signature. Once the president signed the draft, it would become a law that applied to the whole country. The process for making laws in the state governments was similar. When a state government wanted to make a new law, they would also go through a process. They would identify the need for the law, prepare a draft, get it approved by the state cabinet, and then present it to the state legislative assembly for discussion and voting. If the majority of the members agreed, it would be sent to the governor for signing, and it would become a law that applied to that state. Laws were organized in a way that made them easy to understand. They were divided into chapters, sections, subsections, clauses, and subclauses. When sections were related to each other, they were called subsections. But when there was no direct relationship, they were called clauses. In the laws, definitions were usually given in Section 2. This section was the starting point for understanding the meanings of different terms used in the law. If a term was not defined in the same section, they would look at Section 2 first, and then at other general clauses in the law. If necessary, they would also use common language or words that people already understood. When reading the laws, you might come across the words shall and may. Shall meant that something was mandatory and had to be done. It was like a rule that had to be followed. On the other hand, may meant that something was optional. It gave people the choice to decide whether they wanted to do something or not, as long as it was within the boundaries of the law. Some laws had definitions that left no room for imagination. They explained everything about a concept or term in great detail, covering every aspect. These were called exhaustive definitions. But there were also inclusive definitions that not only explained the concept or term precisely but also provided examples and showed how it could be applied in different situations. These examples helped people understand the concept better and gave them a clearer picture of what it meant. And that's the story of how laws were made and how they helped people live together in harmony, following the rules that were set by the governing authority.